What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, going to be going over the trades we ended up taking on Friday, as well as the game plan going into tomorrow and this week. So Friday, or this week in general, was actually a very slow week. We only got like 3 setups for the week, which is usually, that usually never happens. Usually there's a lot more setups than that. It was just a very slow week. We had 2 setups on Monday, and then we finally got another setup on Friday, and it was a really good one. So what we ended up taking was a short, and going into the day, we were bearish still. You guys know Fridays we pick new Friday contracts here. I'm going to pull up the 30-minute chart. This tells us the trend in the market. So once this chart ended up crossing and the 50 turned up, we're bearish here on the 30-minute. So pretty much once we get this, it's like, okay, we're only looking for setups to take to the downside. This is where the system really helps you. It just gives you a really good sense of direction on where you want to be focusing your trades. So what are the trade opportunities when we get this 30-minute cross? I don't usually take a direct trade off of this. I mean, you can if you want. If you play options, you could take a swing short. Your best opportunity is always going to be a dip to the 50, or if you want to kind of go half size on the initial cross, and if we do get a dip to the 50, you could add your other half. So either get a trade on the 5-minute on the 0DT chart, we get a cross, or we get a fib trade, or we get a trade that they both line up where we get a cross, we get some sort of confluence with the fib at the same time, where we get like a pullback to the 50 on the 0DT chart for a short. And that's actually what we end up getting on Friday. So again, the higher time frames are really important. You guys can see what actually ended up happening. Every single time frame's in sync here. 1 hour chart's crossing, 2-hour chart crossed. We had the 4-hour chart that got back above the 10, the 50 here, 50's up, and there's no daily 50 here on the daily chart for the weeklies. But then the monthly contracts, which I've been talking about like last couple of videos, I've been telling you guys there's literally no reason to be bullish when we have this chart. Went over this last couple of days, told you guys, as long as this 50 ends up holding, this is your massive support down here. You could buy every dip to the 50 on this chart for a swing if you want, and look at the moves. Every dip got eaten up, and yeah, pretty much this chart alone just gave me the bearish bias. For the week, I was favoring lower the entire week, and yeah, I mean, I would expect us to gap down tomorrow. Futures are down a bit, but to go over the trade that we end up taking here. And before even the trade, the monthly contracts, you could trade directly off them if you want. For me, they just give me more of a bias. So the daily chart, the daily and the 4-hour for the monthlies, and then the weeklies also just give me a bias. I don't directly trade them. They just give me the trades that I want to be focusing. So they tell me, okay, do I want to be shorting, longing? Like, what's my bias, pretty much. So I don't really take direct trades off of them. I use more so the 0DT chart and the fib. So when it came to Friday, this is what we took. Pull up the ES chart here. This is the fibs we got going. So this is the trade we ended up taking. So I ended up taking this short here off of this 64-65 level on ES at like 12:45. I ended up setting limit orders. So I ended up setting limits below it. I had a limit at 60, 62, and 64. Reason I did this was because the 0DT chart was crossing. So I'm going to show you guys what this actually ended up looking like on the 0DT chart in real time. I think I have it somewhere. I think it's somewhere here, but it was pretty much a dip to the 50 SMA. So I'm trying to see where I sent this, but it was a very textbook setup. This was an A+ short, just because 5-minute 0DT 50 ended up lining up with it, and then also the fib level, and then all the higher time frame confluences. I mean, it was super A+. Literally everything was pointing lower. There was no reason pretty much for this chart or this trade not to end up working out. Obviously there's still a possibility, but the probabilities were definitely in our favor on this. This is what this initially looked like on the cross. So this is at 12:22. I wasn't in this trade yet, but this is how the cross was setting up. This wasn't like the entry I wanted on this chart, just because, I don't like how the 50's up aggressively like this. It looks a little weird, but 12:22, okay, puts were starting to cross. Not my entry. I didn't get in anything yet. I want to see something else develop. That was at, let's see, 12:22. So yeah, I don't think we end up closing that far below it yet. Like, I wanted to retest this fib, which we did end up getting. I'm trying to see where the 0DT 50 ended up lining up. I swear I took a screenshot of it. Look at this. We pulled back to the 50 here on the 0DT chart. We're at the 50 SMA here. We're at the fib level right up in here. And perfect reject off of it, and we got a dump. We came back up to it. There's a weird candle. We barely had any drawdown on this. I think my fill was like 62, 63. So at most we were down. It was like 4 points. So yeah, there was pretty much no drawdown on this trade. And given what the higher time frames were looking like, this was a trade you 100% should have been holding longer, just because, again, we have the 4-hour chart cross, 2-hour charts crossing, 1-hour charts crossing. We have everything pointing lower, and the higher time frames on monthlies are super bearish. This is a trade you could 100% hold for a bit longer than usual because we have so many confluences to the downside. So I didn't end up trimming half until around like 30 points. I think it was like 27, 28 points. I ended up trimming half, and then I trimmed more, I want to say around like 35 points. And then we hit around like 40 points, maybe a little bit more than 40 points. And then once we started to bounce down in here, I just got out. I would have been trailed out anyways because of this 10 SMA. So pretty much just trailing this 10. We would have got a candle closure right here. You would have been trailed out at 27 anyways. And I think that's where I ended up closing. I think I probably closed around like 25, 26. So yeah, I mean, overall, net on this trade was around like 40 points, which is a massive, massive move. And that's like a 1 to 4. You're risking like 10 points, 10, 11 points on the trade, and you get 40. I mean, that's a massive trade. So that was the setup. And if we just look at the 0DT chart here, I'll show you guys the like full aftermath of that 50, and you guys can see that ended up marking the bottom for quite some time down in here. You can see we just went lower and lower and lower. Where did we close below? So I want to see where it's actually. I closed at 210. So I would have been trailed out anyways because of this candle closure probably, but yeah, I mean, if you use the 10 SMA on the options chart, the regular chart, it really doesn't matter. As long as you use something on the chart that, you know, makes sense to cut your runners, that's the way to do it. So that was the trade we ended up taking on Monday. We took 2 losses, one for 11 points and the other for like, I think 30, 40 points at NQ. And this trade right here made up for both of those and also plenty of profit. So that is why the fibs are great. They give you super, super high risk to reward trades, and if you could hit like one good trade a week, honestly, on these, that's pretty much all you need. You'll be green for the week if you could hit one solid trade. And yeah, I mean, that was an A+ setup. They don't come that often, but when we have everything, you know, pointing lower, this was a trade you 100% should have been taking. And yeah, that was a really, really clean setup. Now when it comes to tomorrow, it's gonna be, we're kind of in a weird spot here because we are kind of so extended here on the fibs. I ended up adding some more fibs on the chart here, which I never had any other extensions on, but this is the first time we've been seeing these moves all the way past like the 100% mark, or like the 127, 141. So I ended up adding the 200. You could probably add the I'm not sure if there's another one you could add, but I have the 200 level. I'm not sure if you could add the 223.6, but yeah, at this point, just send us to the 200% fib. If we get to that point, down in here, 100% will try along probably at it because of how extended this move is. So the next fib below 100% I'll be trying a long at because we are just super, super extended. I think we're due for a bounce at some point next week. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to trades, next fib below for a short, or you know, when it comes to shorting, it really all depends. Like if we go to the 30-minute here, we're probably gonna get different contracts, but I'd be open to taking a short at this 50. So if we get a massive dip here sometime, either tomorrow or Tuesday, look for this 50 SMA and look to see if we line up with a fib level when we do pull back to this 50. Because if we do, probably we'll take a trade off of that because we have some confluence there. We got the 30-minute 50. We have probably the higher time frame 50s as well, 4-hour 50. So once we pull back to these higher time frame 50s, look for a fib when we do get this pullback, and that could be a solid trade to take on ES. Look for a fib short off of that. So that's pretty much my game plan for tomorrow and pretty much like kind of Tuesday if we don't get a pullback. So yeah, that's all I got. If you guys enjoyed, drop a sub. Join the Discord if you want to learn. I'm out. Peace.